Longtime Star Tribune columnist Jim Klobuchar passed away on May 12th. He was among America's top scribes in the newspaper world, up there with Jimmy Breslin, Mike Royko, and Molly Ivins. Jim was also an adventurer, traveler, and author. As we know, one of Jim Klobuchar's two daughters became a U.S. Senator. Jim campaigned for Amy while covering the Vikings for MinnPost. His stuff was as good as Brett Favre's arm. Before turns at KQRS Radio and the Stretch and Z Show, Mike Gelfand worked at the Portland Avenue newspapers.
The point being, I once had a stake in this place.
A few weeks back, we talked about Klobuchar. Mike Gelfand, a longtime pal of mine, used to work sports at the Tribune, I think, right?
That's correct.
And has a few stories about Jim. And after we have that short discussion, we're going to look at an interview I did with Jim in 2012. That's when Obama was running for his second term. So, what are your memories of Jim?
Jim and these other guys you talk about, like Breslin and Royko, they were all a little bigger than life. They tended to be. And another guy I'd throw in there was Larry Batson, a terrific writer who wrote a column for the Minneapolis Tribune for quite a while. And these guys all seem to have, coming from the range, it's not surprising either. These guys, but as Klobuchar did, but all these columnists, they were fiery, passionate, indignant, angry guys. They were as good as they were because they wanted to speak out for people who have no voice. The little guy, and I'm a little guy, so I can kind of see where the interest is. And they all tended to be alcoholics too, by the way. I don't know why. I'm not saying they were all alcoholics, but the vast majority of them were alcoholics. Jim was, of course, an alcoholic for many years, but I think about the last 20 years or so, he was sober. The thing about Jim was he was a great writer, and he had a magic about him. One of the magical things about him was that when people talked to him, or at least as the quotes were presented, these people spoke in the most flowery prose imaginable, but they never really did that in real life. But everybody knew it was Jim,
You were talking about maybe Twins players and Viking players and things like this?
Pretty much anybody.
Yeah.
They had a voice that was more articulate when Jim quoted them.
Okay.
But everybody knew it, It wasn't like it was a secret. That was just one of the things Jim did. When other people did it, we might call it cooking quotes. That was a phrase. But we didn't call it what Jim did cooking quotes. We just called it being Jim.
Okay, cooking quotes.
The cooker is, not someone who's typically respected, but Jim was widely respected, and we all just kind of laughed about it. But as I say, they were typically angry guys. Jim was a guy. He was known to get into a bar fight or two. He was an angry drunk. In the last 20 years of his life, for example, I'll just tell you, when I would see Jim in the hallway, or out on a story or something occasionally, Jim would sort of grunt at me and nod his some kind of assent, But the last 20 years after he got sober, Jim would always want to talk to me. He'd want to discuss things. How's your dad doing? How are you doing? And he really his personality changed, but he was able to change his personality, I think, without changing his writing. I was on the copy desk, a job for which I was ill-suited, but I had been hired right out of college to work, and they just threw me on the copy desk. They said, "I'll give you a reporting job, sooner or later." I managed to be there for 3 weeks before I put in my notice, but one day I thought it was an honor when the slot guy, he was the guy in charge of the copy desk, and he would dish out the stories like a dealer at a casino. He would dish out the stories. Well, he gave me Jim Klobuchar's column, and I thought, well, they really hold me in high esteem here. So I started to look it over, and I started to move my pencil toward his copy. Obviously, this was before computers. That's how long ago it was. But my pencil never hit the actual page, because the slot guy looked at me and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I didn't even get to finish my sentence." He said, "Nobody touches Jim Klobuchar." And I said, "Well, I understand that. I mean, sure." And I said, "But I don't understand why you gave me this to edit if we can't edit it." He said, "It's protocol, son. It's protocol." So I learned a lot in those 3 weeks on the copy desk. I learned that Jim Klobuchar, who I'd always, of course, held in awe anyway, but I understood then that if you touched his copy, you were a heretic, doomed to journalism hell.
Well, let's see that clip of Jim Klobuchar. Back in 2012, that's when Obama was running for his second term. Jim was at Edenville, that's a camp in Eden Prairie, meeting with local Democrats, Senate District 48, I believe it's called. It was 95 degrees outside, the humidity was about the same. I had set up outside a soapbox where people could answer questions to our camera, and we put it on Southwest TV. Well, Jim walks out the door, and of course I want him on our show back then. And he said, "Yeah, no problem. What do we do?" I said, "Jim, I ask the questions, you give the answers." Here's that tape.
So, what's it like being back in Eden Prairie?
Oh, I love it. I've got a lot of friends here, whatever the political alignments are. But no, it's a great place. I do a lot of shopping in Eden Prairie.
Now, of course, all the Democrats at Eden Prairie and Minnetonka are part of that 1%, right? That's
Yeah.
going to get all those breaks, from the Republicans?
Yeah, that's it, right, yeah.
Now, what about Amy's opponent?
Well, I really don't know the gentleman. I know what his party has done in the legislature in the last couple of years. I'm not especially proud of all of that. And the turmoil it's in today, I think, is a result partly of the misguided work they have been doing and strategies. I'm not, I'm a Democrat. My daughter is a United States Senator. I try not to be wildly partisan about that. I know a lot of people, Republicans, I'd call them ardent Republicans, are good folks, and the people I find very trustworthy, and their politics is something probably closer to ours.
Now, give me some practical advice. We have to win the independent voters in Minnesota for not only the U.S. Senate race, but also our local races.
Yeah.
Give us some advice. How am I going to talk to the independent voter about who to vote for?
I think they have to take a look at the trajectory this country's in now, and what we have done by allowing unchallenged amount of money to come into political campaigns now, and what it might be doing to the political process, and the Supreme Court decision empowering all of this massive spending, I think done a great disservice to America and to the fairness of it. And we will see the results of all of that in a couple of months when the advertisements, yes, the Democrats have some. The Democrats aren't saints most of the time. They're good people, probably qualify for something close to that. But no, it's lopsided right now. And I think to the extent that the Supreme Court decision empowering corporations, and it's not only corporations, unlimited money coming into this country with no indication of where it's coming from, who's sponsoring all of this. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is acting, of course, as a middle person in all of that. And it's in some ways sickening, but this is the hand we have been dealt with, and we can't cringe from that. So we fight the battle we have to fight, and Democrats have to make sure that those who voted for this party into power 4 years ago are back there voting now, because the stakes are even higher. I think if the Republicans win with all this money behind them, and now are in position to determine the course of the Supreme Court for the next 10 or 15 years, I think we've had an example of where they may be going. And I think you have now almost an absolute power, control of money. And what's at stake here, I think the Republicans now have a chance not only to see a chance not only to defeat the Democrats, but to destroy them as a political force, and with an enormous outpouring of money. So I think that's what the stake is, and I think Democrats have to know that.
Thank you very much.
Rich.
Thank you.
You know, that was the late stages of Jim. He was sort of thoughtful, contemplative, and you could tell that there was an air of serenity about him. Jim went through some obvious metamorphoses throughout his career, but the one thing, even though he was subdued and contemplative at the end, which he wasn't before, subduing him would have been impossible. Only Jim could subdue Jim, but he always had that passion about him, which is what makes all great columnists. It's that passion. It's the fact that you are speaking for people who have no voice, and that's why Jim, frankly, was a Democrat. You know, that's very well suited to a Democrat. Is that you think that there's something good that can be done for people. On the other side, people have to do everything for themselves, damn it.
Democratic Visions is handcrafted by volunteers from Eden Prairie, Hopkins, Minnetonka, Edina, and Bloomington. Watch us on select cable systems and on our YouTube channel. This is Carol Sundstrom.